Um, so I wanted to talk to you guys about this because the last time that I ran the course in January, there were a ton of questions about like, what's the deal with Zoe? And, um, I felt like I was trying to answer the questions as well as I could within the constructs of the group, the Facebook group. But the issue is that sometimes it's easier to just kind of pull it all together and break it down and give an explanation. And I wanted to, Terry says that she's doing Zoe literally right now. Very cool, Terry. So I wanted to share this with you guys, not because you need to do Zoe, but instead because I want to empower you with the information. I am involved with Zoe and I want to talk about that. But also I want to empower you with the information so that you understand what this is. And I think honestly, when people hear about this, most people are like, whoa, that's really cool. But at the end of the day, these are personal choices. And this is another tool that can be a part of your toolbox in terms of your journey and where you're trying to go. So it's just something to be aware of. So I actually put together some slides because I honestly thought, I was like sitting there thinking about this last night as I was watching the basketball game. And I thought, it's going to be hard for me to like really kind of explain what the deal is with Zoe without actually having something to show you guys. So anyway, you guys can see that? You can see my slides? Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you. All right. So I want to talk to you about Zoe. I got some slides and then I'm going to do questions. There were questions that were submitted, but if you guys have stuff that you want to jump in and add, you can definitely do that through the chat box. I need to see if there's a way that I can see the chat box while I'm presenting. I wish that I could. Well, anyway, all right. So let's talk about Zoe. So first of all, I think most of you guys already know this, but I am on the scientific advisory board of Zoe. And I want to start off by telling you about how this came to be. It's kind of interesting. So if you went back to late May of 2020, it was a Wednesday. I'd have to figure out what the date was. I guess it was Wednesday, the 21st of May. And I got a phone call from my literary agent to tell me that I made the New York Times bestseller list. And the following day, the first person to reach out to me was this guy. So this is Dr. William Lee. He is one of the world's leading researchers on the topic of angiogenesis. He's actually published some very interesting COVID studies. And he wrote a book, which was also a New York Times bestseller. It came out a few years ago called Eat to Beat Disease. Anyone read that book? So anyway, Will Lee calls me up and basically we had like a 2.5-hour conversation. And he basically says to me, look, man, now that you have this, like now that you're in this club, the New York Times bestseller club, you need to figure out what you want to do. And whatever that is, say no to everything else because people are going to throw stuff at you. Say no to everything else and say yes to what you really want to be a part of going forward because you are in a position of privilege where now you have the opportunity to decide like what you're interested in taking part in. So what was interesting is we had this conversation May 21st, and then fast forward like literally about 3 weeks, and it was the American Society for Nutrition meeting. And the big thing that came out at the American Society of Nutrition meeting in June of 2020 was the presentation by Zoe. And when I saw what they were doing, I instantly was like, that's the future. And I thought to myself, I'm really interested and I want to be a part of that. And so anyway, basically in October of 2020, I tested out the Zoe kit. I did it myself and I liked it. And basically from that point, I developed a relationship with the people at Zoe that ultimately led to, in March of this year, I joined their scientific advisory board. I'm actively involved in research. So like, for example, there is a study that I'm working on right now that I'm super excited about, which is going to connect food, to microbes to mood. All right. So not ready to present anything there, but when it comes, I think it's going to be amazing. So I'm involved in research. I'm also involved on the scientific advisory board in terms of how we do things. And so background on ZOE, because I think this is relevant. These are the founders. So it's kind of weird. It's almost like putting these guys up on a pedestal. But anyway, these are my friends too. So these are the founders, Tim Spector, Jonathan Wolf, and George. And they found the company in 2017. And the deal is this: Tim is literally one of the world's leading scientists, has published more than like 1,200 articles in peer-reviewed journals, the top journals. Okay, that's crazy. One of the top 100 most published scientists on the planet. And he gave a talk around 2017, and Jonathan was in the audience. And Jonathan has a background in machine learning, and he's a physics guy. And so he approached him and said, like, I think we could do something really cool using this new technology of the microbiome and combining it with my background in machine learning. And so he pulled in his friend George, and George is a mechanical engineer from MIT who has a background in basically apps and the delivery of apps. So anyway, these three guys all bring something unique to the table. They started in 2017, but what's interesting is that the product actually didn't come out until, like, in the United States, it came out in late 2020. So what's the deal with this big delay between starting a company and then 3 years later, you finally start to allow people to use your product? That's a big delay. Well, the scoop is that they were doing research. So rather than spending their money on marketing and like literally bringing out the product immediately, they instead decided to spend their money investing into studies and research to demonstrate that their product actually works before they would ever go public and offer it to anyone, which in the microbiome space, there is no one who's done anything like this. I mean, I would describe it as very risky because you could lose everything and have nothing to show for it. What if the research shows that you don't have anything? What if it shows that it's a failure? But nonetheless, this is what they did. And so you can see in June of 2018, they started their first research. This is the PREDICT-1 trial, and I'm going to show you some of the research that's come out of this already being published. So PREDICT-1 was more of a, let's apply these ideas to a group of people, both in the United States and the UK, at Harvard and at King's College London. But we're going to do it in a very controlled way. So this is like a true clinical research study, but applying these ideas and concepts. All right. And that concluded in September of 2019, 1,100 total people. And then they did PREDICT-2, which started in June of 2019, and it ended in March of 2020, right when COVID hit. So with this, it was 1,200 people, and it was in the US, and this was at home. So this was not like you basically coming in and being a part of a clinical research study. This was instead, here's your stuff, do this at home, and we're going to track your results. So it's more of like a real-time experience to see what's going on with people in, like, basically out in the wild. So as opposed to being very controlled in a sort of experimental setting. So they've published a number of papers. This first paper right here, this came out, you can see the date, June 11th, 2020. So this was like one of the eye-opening things for me, like, whoa, okay, what's going on here? Published in Nature Medicine. This is literally the top medical journal on the planet. You can't, like, we find the cure of cancer. This is the journal that it's going into. It's impossible to get into. I have never published anything even close to getting into Nature Medicine. So anyway, human postprandial responses to food and potential for precision nutrition. Here's what they found, and this is what they're presenting at the American Society of Nutrition meeting. Basically, if you give the exact same food to two different people, could be anyone, could be me and Elena right here. So you give Elena and I the exact same food. there could be a profound difference in terms of how high our triglycerides rise after that meal, or how high our blood sugar rises after that meal, or how high our insulin rises after that meal. The way our metabolism functions can be radically different between two different people given literally the exact same food. So, like, literally a more than 100% difference could be found in terms of triglycerides. 68% difference in sugar, 59% difference in insulin. All right. So, there is something going on there. What is it? Is it genetics? Like, are we just pre-programmed where, the differences between me and someone else eating the same food are purely our genetic code? No. The answer is it's a lot more complicated than that. And a big part of it is your gut microbiome. In this study, for example, with regard to triglycerides, all right, so like blood fat rising after a meal, with regard to that, your gut microbiome predicted the rise in your triglycerides much more powerfully than your genetic code does. Your gut microbes, which can change, are more powerful than your genes. Pretty interesting. These gut microbes could actually, I find this to be fascinating. Sorry, I'm a nerd. These gut microbes could actually predict more powerfully how high your triglycerides, your blood fat, would rise more so than the macronutrient breakdown of the meal. Like, your gut microbes are more powerful than whether or not it's a high fat or a low fat meal. That's crazy. What is going on here? So in this study, part of what they did is they basically applied these machine learning concepts that Jonathan loves to the 1,000 people who participated in the study, and they validated it in a smaller group to show that basically there is a model that exists. It's essentially, at the end of the day, a mathematical equation where if you put the variables into place that are unique and specific to you, you can predict what an individual person's response to food is going to be in terms of their triglycerides, in terms of their blood sugar. Pretty cool. So, and it's not just one thing. Like, it's not just your microbiome. It's not just your genetics, obviously. There's more to it than that. But part of it is the food, part of it is the microbiome, part of it is your genetics, part of it is, there's so many different factors. Okay. A second study, again, Nature Medicine, the top journal on the planet, came out in January. This, again, was from Predict One. All right, so here it is. Microbiome connections with host metabolism and habitual diet from basically 1,100 deeply phenotyped people. All right, so basically here's what they found in this study. If you know what a person eats, you can predict what their microbiome looks like. If you can predict what their microbiome looks like, you can predict things about their metabolism, their weight balance, and even their risk of cardiometabolic disease like coronary artery disease. Pretty cool. In this study, one of the things that I personally love, given my biases, obviously, that I would just be completely upfront about. I mean, look, I wrote a book saying that we should eat more plants and diversity. So it wouldn't make me look very good if the study shows the polar opposite. Except science is science. When you're following the science, although you will have to adjust as you go, if you're following the science, more than likely you're onto something. And in this study, what they found was that what was driving this in a lot of ways was the plants, and specifically the diversity of plants. There it is. So this is another study showing this. Again, like, further support to this concept that this is important. In the study, they found that there was this specific panel of microbes that were very powerfully connected to cardiometabolic risk. So they found 30 total microbes, which they defined as like 15 good, which are the ones you want to have, and 15 bad, which are the ones that you don't want too much of. All right. So they found like these specific patterns, and basically, what they showed is that if you know nothing else about a person, but you look at their microbiome and you look at this panel of microbes, you can tell a lot about what their risk of heart disease is before the heart disease ever even manifests. Since that time, they've come out with multiple publications. It's hard to keep up with. They're coming out like literally about once a month right now. So here's one that just came out. This was Inflammation After Meals by my friend Sarah Berry. Okay, this came out in June. This one, Gut Microbiome Diversity and High Blood Pressure in Women. This was Sarah Berry and my friend Anna Valdez, May. April, this was a really, really important study. A lot of people were talking about this. Postprandial glycemic dips predict appetite and energy intake in healthy individuals. Here's what they showed. I want to tell you real quick because it's kind of interesting. So like we're told calories are calories. Okay, cool. Here's the problem. You could eat literally the same number of calories as another person, and one of the two of you has a drop in your blood sugar after the meal, which by the way could be predicted ahead of time. Okay. But one of the two of you has a drop in your blood sugar. And because you have this drop in your blood sugar, your appetite kicks in and you go foraging for food. And as a result of this, even though the calories in that initial meal were exactly the same, in the real world, because that's where we live, we're not like, parts of experiments. We're real people, freely ranging, like freely roaming, doing what we want to do. In the real world, if you had this drop in your blood sugar, you were consuming more calories over the next 24 hours, which obviously is a risk factor for obesity and other metabolic diseases. So calories are not just calories. Calories have an effect in terms of how you experience your appetite, which can affect how you feel going into your next meal. That's important. The blue poo, you guys have probably heard me talk about. And then another interesting study that's very actually quite relevant to clinical work that I do. I had a patient come into me who was vegan recently, and she was alarmed and concerned because her white blood cell count was low. And this study right here, I shared with her, which came out in February, showing that higher intake of vegetables is linked to lower white blood cell count. It's a good thing. It means you've reduced inflammation in your body because you're eating a healthy diet. All right, and they have active studies going on. So Predict One, actually, they have like different, Predict One became an umbrella. They have different parts of Predict One, some of which are still ongoing, like for example, involving these twins. They did Predict Two, and now right now they're moving into, they're doing Predict Three. And Predict Three is being done in the United States. I think it's worth shouting out to say that it's kind of cool too, that when COVID hit in March of last year, that they were like, okay, cool. We can't do what we're currently doing. So let's pivot. We have an app, and we can use this app to track people's symptoms relative to whether or not they have COVID. So this was done in the UK, where Tim is a professor in London. And basically they opened up this COVID symptom app, and it became, in the UK, incredibly powerful. And if you guys remember, we learned pretty early on in the whole COVID pandemic that one of the things that happens is you lose your sense of smell, which came from this. That's how we discovered the connection between the loss of sense of smell and the presence of COVID. All right. And they continue to do research, like the Delta research that is going on in the UK, where like basically in the UK, when something happens, they're tracking it. And it has to do with basically this company, ZOE. They're not making money off of this. It's supported by a grant from the government, but basically what they're doing is they had the technology, they thought it would help, so let's do it. All right, so what have we learned? What we learned is that there's all these different factors that are inputs that make the personal version of you. So yes, nutrition is part of it, but it's not just nutrition, or it's not just gut microbiome. It's all these different things: your genetics, your body habitus, your gender, when you eat, whether or not you have underlying medical conditions, how about your sleep, your exercise, like all of these things combine to create a personal experience with your food. You could hold all of these the same and change one, and you will change your personal experience with food. right? Like you could literally eat the exact same food on a bad night's rest and see a different response in your blood sugar. And, kind of the concept here is that if you're, you know, without realizing it, eating foods that are not good for your unique biology, you're creating inflammation. Basically, we have this connection that exists between your blood sugar, your blood fat, and inflammation. It's been shown that this is a way, like a surrogate measure for increased inflammation in the body. So when we're eating the wrong foods, then this can compound over the course of time, which can ultimately, over the course of years, lead to these outcomes of things that we don't want. So, what have we learned from all this research that they've been doing so far? This is where we're at right now. And there's more to come. We know that the individual response to a specific food is going to be personal to you. Again, like your triglycerides could vary by 100% compared to another person. Your blood sugar could be nearly 70% different. Our gut microbiome plays an important role in this process, but it's unique to you. When they compared two identical human twins, right? Identical human twins, same genetic code. They shared only 34% of the same microbes. These things, your individual response, your gut microbiome, they ultimately have an effect on your health. And they can cause dietary inflammation. Dietary inflammation varies based upon your blood sugar and your blood fat response. All right, so because this varies, it means that this varies based upon your unique inputs. It's important to note, sorry, not sure what I did there. It's important to note that you're not a prisoner of your genes. That, for many of these things, there are other factors other than your genetics that are more important. So that's a good thing. That's actually quite empowering. We talked about weight gain, how that is not just calories, that the type of calories for your unique biology matter. Because if you have a blood sugar dip after eating those calories, you are going to be foraging for more food without even realizing it at your next meal. And we know from the research that they've done that machine learning can be used to generate personalized nutrition advice. So here's how it works. Basically, what we want is we want to take as much of this sort of equation of like, okay, here you are, you're this unique person, but there's these different factors that can affect the result. And we want to try to isolate these factors and collect information as much as possible. So like if we just did a microbiome test, it would be good, it wouldn't be great. If we just did blood sugar, it would be good, it wouldn't be great. But when you combine blood sugar, blood fat, gut microbiome, and you basically put it all on the table at the same time, you are collecting all of the information, and that allows you to really have the complete picture. And I think that's one of the key things is that there's strength in the fact that we're collecting all this information, a powerful amount of information. So the way that you go about doing this is that you start off and you do your test. I'm going to talk to you in a moment about how that works. You do the test, you submit it, and then it takes about 6 weeks and you get your results. You use those results and you basically use the framework that they have created, which is through the app, to put this into motion so that you can actually use this information, not just like, oh, that's interesting, but like, no, hold up. That is interesting, but let's actually apply it to your life. Let's start making simple substitutions that are beneficial to your unique biology, recognizing that we can identify which foods are ideal and which foods need to be substituted. So, and by doing this, by implementing it over the course of time, you develop healthy habits, and those healthy habits become your lifestyle, and it's just what you know. But you carry that forward in the choices that you make on a routine day-to-day basis, and that's a beautiful thing. So testing at home, I'm going to talk about these different parts. There's a continuous glucose monitor. All right, so This thing, this glucose monitor has like a little needle at the tip. All right. Sounds very scary. I was shocked at how easy this was to apply. Completely shocked. You literally just put it over your muscle and you press a button and it's in. And it's like, hold on, I didn't even feel a prick. Very weird. So there's no pain. And basically what this does is it measures your blood sugar like continuously for 14 days. So, which is a pretty cool thing because this little thing here is your blood sugar monitor. And what you do is you hold this up to here, you hold this blood sugar monitor up to here, and it will download the data. And so I'll give you a quick example. I went out to dinner with my wife while I was wearing this, and we went downtown. I got a completely plant-based meal. All right. But I was hungry. The kitchen was slow. I was eating bread. So I'm sitting there eating white bread, and then they bring out this plant-based meal. It was delicious, but it was pretty lathered in oil. And my blood sugar spiked. And I could see it. And that was very interesting to me to get that feedback on that specific meal because that's a plant-based meal at a nice restaurant in downtown Charleston. Stool testing, all right, microbiome testing. So they do something called shotgun metagenomic sequencing. This is the most advanced test that's available on the market. All right, this is the state of the art. And it's actually incredibly easy to do. You literally, like, they give you a like little receptacle that you put over your toilet. You do your business, and then you basically take this little swab and you put it in an envelope and you send it in. That's it. Done. It's like incredibly easy. They give you a standardized meal. All right. So the key here is this. We want to be able to compare among different people, like from one person to the next. So by having the same meal among everyone, it allows us to make those comparisons. All right. So they're giving you these muffins. Now, a couple things about these muffins. They are gluten and they are dairy free. They are specifically designed to be certain things. Some of the muffins are high fat. Some of them are high in sugar. All right. And again, they're standardized to compare them to other people. Full disclosure, my wife did not like these muffins. She was not happy. I was okay with it because you can drink black coffee with it. So I was drinking black coffee and eating my muffin. The muffins are not vegan at the moment. Here's the issue with that. So when they developed this program, it was back in 2017. And one of the things that they didn't anticipate at the time was the need to be, maximally inclusive, recognizing that in the United States, only about 1% of people are vegan. But like, we don't want to exclude those people. So when they initiated these research studies, they were using the muffins that they're currently using. Here's the problem. If you want to go back and change this, you don't want to invalidate all the work that has already been done to date. So you have to recreate this in a way where it is like literally the same thing, only there's no egg. So that's what they're working on. I don't know when that's going to happen, but they're working on that. All right. And then you do blood lipid testing. You typically do this after you eat the muffins. It's a finger prick. All right. This is the same technology that they used in all the PREDICT studies. And you do this little finger prick and you put like a couple drops of blood on a card and then you basically mail that in. All right. I found this a little bit tricky. I'll just be completely honest. I found this a little bit difficult to do, but I understand that for the purpose of collecting the information that we're trying to collect, it's a necessary part of the process because you're not going to go to a lab and get stuck. So this is a simple way to make it at home so that we can get the information that we need, which are your blood lipids, which is an important thing. And then there's the food app. You like basically enter in what you're eating. If you want to be rigorous about it, which is like the more rigorous, the better, you can actually weigh your food and put in how many grams of food you have. So, but like basically you enter in what you're eating and that way it collects this data and it's also going to be able to take that data and combine it with your gut microbiome, combine it with your continuous glucose monitor, combine it with your blood lipid testing. And this is how we get the complete picture. So sometimes it was easy, sometimes it was a little frustrating. Honestly, one of the things that made me a little bit sad, and there's no way to get around this. It was super easy to enter food that's like, like a boxed lunch or like ultra processed food that's standardized. It's super easy to do that. It's a lot harder when you're cooking because then you have to estimate how much of each ingredient you put in. So whereas like if you like have a microwave dinner, they already have that pre-programmed because they know what that is. So that's one of the challenges. I don't know that there's a way to get around that. Okay, so after you do the test, about 6 weeks later, you get your personalized results. And basically what they do is they give you feedback on 3 specific metrics. They talk to you about your gut health, they talk to you about your blood sugar response, and they talk to you about your blood lipid response. So they're breaking each one of these down individually for you. And they teach you about your gut microbes. So I mentioned before that there was a study published in Nature Medicine, which validated the idea that if you look at these 30 gut microbes, you can like literally see nothing else, know nothing else about the person at all, other than just what do these gut microbes look like? And that was actually predictive of cardiometabolic risk. So that's one of the things that they give you feedback on, and they tell you how we can get more of the good ones and less of the bad ones. So what they do is they give you personalized gut boosters, personalized gut suppressors. So like, I'm going to show you what mine were. Okay. Any guesses? I'm going to stop sharing for a quick moment here and go to the chat box. Any guesses from you guys on what were my gut boosters? Like what kind of food would you expect to be my gut boosters? What would you predict? Any thoughts? Fiber. Exactly. Broccoli sprouts. I love it. High fiber foods, lentils. What do you guys think were my gut suppressors? What kind of foods were my gut suppressors? The ones that are bad for my gut. What would you predict? Sugar, white bread, oils. See, you guys were paying attention to my story. Good job. Very cool. All right. Donuts. Nice. All right. So, okay. So here are my gut boosters. All right. At the top, asparagus, avocados, lentils. I was very happy to have avocados in there. And the other thing that's kind of cool is like, I've never been a big lentil guy in the past. And the fact that this was in there made me intrigued. And I started to gravitate more towards lentils in my diet, specifically a lot of sprouted lentils. So I don't know if you guys follow me on Instagram, but you probably noticed quite a bit of sprouted lentils like about 6 months ago. That's when I got my results. So spinach, artichokes, broccoli. If you go down the line and you just kind of glance, follow the cursor here, what we're seeing is that there's a common theme. Every single one of my gut boosters is a plant. Every single one, including the fermented ones. So that's kind of cool. And gut suppressors, here they are. Chicken breast, pork chop, potato chips, chocolate, ribs, white bread. There it is. It's bad. 23. This is my personalized score, by the way. Vanilla ice cream, homemade apple pie. Oh, come on, man. Don't do that to me. Hard candy's got a 0. That's embarrassing. 0. Ketchup. Well, thank goodness I'm not really a ketchup guy. I'm more of a spicy mustard guy. So at least I'm good there. So, but you guys can see there's a theme here too. How many like whole plants are on this list? None. Ultra processed? Yes, like including potato chips and white bread. Ultra processed foods and animal products, specifically these ultra processed for animal products, these are our least healthy choices. So there's my list, individualized to me. All right. So one of the questions I get is when it comes to ZOE is this, like, so why not just eat plants? And the answer from my perspective is you can definitely do that. You don't need to feel like you are under an obligation to do ZOE for the purpose of finding the individualized nature of you. But I kind of feel like this is the way that I would frame this. If we were painting a picture, okay, and I'm trying to tell you exactly how to optimize your diet for your personal needs. If I were to use population-based research, it would look like this. And this is a nice painting. I could easily see this hanging in my house. I would be very happy with it. And we all know what we're looking at here. We're looking at some mountains. We're looking at some trees. But there's an abstract nature to it. It's a little bit hard to look at this and say that, I mean, you would call this an abstract painting. This is not detail oriented. And so, we know from population studies that a predominantly plant-based diet is the optimal choice for human health. But what does it really look like for your personal choices? And if we want to get the fine tuning and be able to see the details, that's where this idea of ZOE comes in, is that you go from basically painting with very broad strokes, abstractly, to being able to like really get fine in terms of the details. That's the difference between the two. So is it required to be healthy? Absolutely not. But can it make you even healthier? Can it bring clarity to your unique biology? Absolutely. That's where I see the advantage existing. So once you get your results back, then you can basically step forward and start activating your personal approach. That includes that ZOE includes or provides a 4-week plan, which is like specifically tailored to your unique biology. So it comes from the app. It looks like this. You can click on these different things. They're going to tell you some of the ideas of how you can make substitutions. It's built around your personal food scores, right? So it's taking your unique biology, your microbiome, your blood lipids, your blood glucose, taking all that into effect. And basically week by week, you start to level up using this 4-week plan. And then beyond that, you have access to this app, and the app has personalized scores for thousands of foods. So each food you can go in and look, and it's going to look something like this: spiced pears and pomegranate. That's your ZOE score right there, 94. Okay, but what if your concern is your blood sugar, right? So it's going to tell you whether or not this is good for your blood sugar. It's going to tell you whether or not this is good for your blood fat. And it gives you this unique feedback on these different metrics. So you get these personalized scores for all these different foods. So if there's any question, you're like, well, do I eat the tofu or do I get the lentils? Look at the score. Makes it simple. And there is this premium feature, just so you guys know. I didn't actually do this, so I can't speak to it myself, but you can do one-on-one support if that's something that interests you. So now you do have to pay more money to get this, but basically what you get is you get one-on-one coaching during the life of the ZOE program. So it could be video coaching. It's also in-app chat that's available. So, okay. So let me just kind of walk you guys through my final thoughts when it comes to this entire thing, ZOE. I hope that this has brought some clarity to you guys and helped you to understand like what ZOE is, what it's about. I'm going to try to bring a little bit additional clarity on my thoughts, and then I'm going to answer some of the questions that came in, and also jump into any questions that you guys put into the chat box for me. So, okay. So, gosh, I got to get rid of that bullet point there, don't I? What is ZOE and what is ZOE not? ZOE is a method using your unique personal biology to improve metabolic health. Metabolic health is very important. That's connected to many of these latent chronic diseases of inflammation. So that's what we're talking about here, is that you have the opportunity to understand how to fine-tune your choices to try to optimize your metabolism. It's not simply your sugar. It's not simply your blood fat. It's that when we take this entire comprehensive picture, we can understand how to optimize the entire process from a metabolic perspective. So, and that is something that, basically gives you that personalized feedback on nutrition that you're looking for, where it's more detailed than just saying eat a predominantly plant-based diet in diversity and abundance. Okay, what is ZOE not? Like, ZOE is not designed to fix food intolerances. If you're doing it because that's what you want, that's not something that they're doing right now. We are working on it. It's going to come. Like, the beauty of what we're doing is that this is going to grow. We have an amazing team of scientists, and we get together every month. Like, literally, we just had a meeting on Monday, and we basically brainstorm how to continue to make this better to help people. So it is going to come in the future where this will be able to help people with food intolerances. It's just a matter of time. It's not yet designed to give you personalized feedback for your digestive diseases. Like, if you have Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, acid reflux, and you're like, well, I'm going to do ZOE because ZOE will tell me what to eat because I have Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, acid reflux. That's not what it's designed for yet. I think it's going to come. All right. It's not intended to diagnose any disease. That's clear. In terms of treatment of disease, I kind of feel like this is a little bit of a cover your tail type of thing that they say this, not intended to treat. Well, I mean, honestly, I think that the personalized feedback is designed to help you to optimize your metabolism, and there are benefits that come from that. So, but certainly this is not a replacement for your doctor. This is not a replacement for your registered dietitian. This is done in a collaborative way in addition to those things. So here are my closing thoughts. This is the way that I feel about it. And, the reason why, let me just say, going back to the beginning when I talked about how I came on board with ZOE, this for me and the people from ZOE, like if you were to call them up and ask them, like, what did Will say to you in the very beginning? They'll tell you this. This was never a transaction for me. This was me seeing what they were doing, believing in it. I really believe in it. I really think that this is incredible. It's incredible from a research perspective. You guys can see the research that we've already done. I think it's incredible in terms of what we can do to help people. The feedback, the average American is eating 10% plants right now. And if the average American were to do ZOE, that would change really quick. So, and that would be a powerful and wonderful thing. But there are some things that I'm very proud of with this company, and part of why I was enthusiastic to be a part of it. I think you guys can see, like, I don't do promotional stuff on my feed. I get offers literally every day where people want to pay me a lot of money to put stuff on my feed and try to sell it to you. And I don't do that. The reason why I do ZOE is because I believe in it. So part of it is the trust. I love that they had the integrity to do 3 years of research before ever offering it publicly. Like, they actually did the studies to show that it works before they ever let a single person pay any money to do it. That's a beautiful thing. Most companies would just literally start marketing immediately and say, we want to take market share. So let's put our product out there. Let's not spend money on research. Let's spend money on marketing. And that way we can take market share and we can be all the hotness. And that's what you see from these microbiome tests that are out there. I love the science board that they've put together. It's an honor for me to be able to work with these people from King's College London, like Tim Spector, people from Harvard, like Andy Chan, people from Stanford, like Chris Gardner. I love that they are publishing in the elite peer-reviewed medical journals. Like, that's a validation directly that the scientific community acknowledges that this is real. Because if this were BS, I can assure you, Nature Medicine wouldn't even give them a single second of a thought. So to be able to get into a journal of that level of prestige, you have to be doing something that your peers in science legitimately believe is transformative. And I love where things are at from a validation perspective. They have validated that they have the ability to use these tools to provide you with feedback on your blood sugar, your blood fat, and that there are implications as a result of that. In terms of further validation studies, they are ongoing and they're going to come. And I'm excited for those to come out next, where we look at people do ZOE, what happens to their blood pressure, what happens to their blood lipids, what happens to their diabetes, what happens to their body weight, did they lose weight? All right, that's coming. And I'm excited for that to be shared. I think it's an unmatched product, because it combines these things. There are products that do microbiome testing. There's products that do glucose testing. All right. This is not just one. This is looking at the whole picture, combining them all. And for each one, it's a state-of-the-art approach, the best microbiome testing that exists. Continuous glucose monitor, not just like a couple pricks of your glucose, like continuous. And then applying these modern tools of machine learning, where basically you start off with the people that are in predict, right? So we have predict 1, predict 2 combined, that's over 2,000 people. You take that and then you start having people who purchase ZOE and enter into the data set. The data set starts to grow. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And as it grows, the machine is basically moving through all of this information, an absurd amount of information, and analyzing it, and then bringing forward the best possible recommendations on how this works. So by using these high powered computers, these massive data sets, all these data points from your stool microbiome, from your continuous glucose monitor, you combine all that. And as time goes on, it keeps getting better and better and better, which is exciting. And then I finally love the whole symbiosis element that's here, which is that this is citizen science. Citizen science means that you are a contributor. So you, by being a part of ZOE, you derive the benefit yourself because you get the personalized feedback that comes from this project, right? So all these other people that have already contributed before you, you derive the benefit of the fact that they were a part of this because you get personalized feedback that combines all this information. But at the same time, you as well are contributing to the data. You are contributing to the improvement of the quality, and it just keeps getting better. And so I think that's one of the things that I dig about this is this idea of citizen science. Like if you were to do this, on a grant from the NIH, it would be impossible. What makes this possible is this idea of a whole bunch of people basically deciding that we're all going to chip in together and we're all going to benefit as a result of that. So I think that's all really cool. All right, that is the extent of my slides. Guys, if you have questions, go ahead and pop them into the chat box. And I'm going to jump through these questions that I got submitted to me real quick. All right, is it possible to get notified when ZOE goes fully vegan? Is there a timeline for this? So I mentioned this briefly. I don't know exactly when this will happen, but I'm anticipating that it will. If you are in the ZOE emailing system, I can assure you, you will find out. If you follow me, when I know, I'm going to share it. Will ZOE help me figure out what is causing my gastritis? The answer is no. ZOE is not intended for diagnosing conditions like gastritis. Is this a blood or saliva test? So I think that we've kind of answered this, but it's not a saliva test. It's a stool test. It's a continuous glucose monitor. And there is the prick that you do for your triglycerides. Are there needles involved? The prick does not involve a needle. The continuous glucose monitor, there is a needle that's a part of it, but like you literally you can't see it or touch it. You just put the device on, you press a button, and it like, again, is painless. So what is the purpose of ZOE if our ultimate goal is to increase diversity in our diets? So if you track what ZOE is messaging, like on social media, they share that common goal. They don't want you to restrict your diet. They want you to have a diet of abundance. But the point, and this is always the truth, is that no matter what, you're going to be making choices, and informed choices are better choices. When you know which foods to gravitate towards, like I'm not just going to eat lentils, but guess what? I wasn't eating lentils before, and now I am, right? So it has helped me to not restrict my abundance or restrict my diversity, but instead to actually open it up and chase some of these foods that I'm like, gosh, I'm not eating a ton of asparagus. Okay, let me get some more asparagus in there. Make sense? All right. Someone asks, I'm very interested in ZOE, particularly the testing, but I've been trying to find out if I can sign up for just the testing and not the entire program. Well, the answer is that you can't do the testing without the program. You could do the testing and then like literally just take your results, feedback, and not do anything else after that. You could do that. That's your choice. Does ZOE consist of mailing stool or blood samples? Yes and yes. This is a pertinent question because some people live in areas where that's not allowed. So like New York, you can't do ZOE in New York. Why? Not because New York thinks that ZOE is bad. It's because New York has a blanket law that basically prohibits the mailing of stool or blood samples. So because of that, you can't do anything that involves that, including ZOE. So someone asked, what is the cost? Kathleen, the cost is, so I believe it is $3.59. Okay, so about $1 a day. And just so you guys know, if you were to literally do this exact same thing in 2019, the cost just for the equipment without ZOE literally making even $1 would have been $1,000. So thankfully, in the last 2 years, they've been able to bring the cost down substantially. Any retesting to check progress? Great question. We're planning to do that. So we are planning to have retesting, and we're going to study that. And I'm excited because I want to retest. So I want to see what happens with me applying some of the things that I've learned. My wife does too. My wife wants to retest. Someone asks, it's not available in New Jersey. Do you know why it isn't and when it might be available? So again, it has to do with the fact that there's a law in New Jersey that prohibits any sort of shipping of stool or blood samples. And that is really what is stopping ZOE from being in those specific places. By the way, I don't know exactly when it will be in Canada. I expect that it will be at some point. I'm expecting it to be available in the UK later this year. All right. And I don't know when it will be available in Australia. But whenever that happens, I want them, ZOE, to meet my friend Simon Hill because I love that guy and I think he's fantastic. So anyway. If someone that doesn't eat many plants does this test with ZOE, will ZOE still be able to tell them what plants are gut boosters, or do they have to be eating those foods during the data collection period in order to know? So the answer, Susanna, is that basically because we have this massive data set, you can look at this huge data set and figure out what are the gut boosters, not because people are eating them, but instead based upon their gut microbiome. So this is the advantage of doing this machine learning and having massive data, is that you can fill in gaps, fill in pieces of the puzzle using the broader data set to basically predict. So, which is kind of cool. Is the ZOE supported with a registered dietitian? Carolyn, I mentioned the premium feature, which you have to pay additional money for. That includes someone who has at least a bachelor's degree in nutrition at a minimum. So not necessarily, a registered dietitian is a specific degree. So they're not necessarily a registered dietitian. They are someone with at least a bachelor's degree in clinical nutrition. Evelyn says, the use of my use of the ZOE app ends this month. Is there any easy way to gather my gut booster foods and best vegetables, protein foods, etc.? Okay, so I don't know of any special way to get that other than you could like literally do screenshots on the app, which that way at least you save those things, the important things that you really want to come back to. Any idea how long before they address food intolerances? Years? Okay, so here's how this is going to play out. First of all, we are working on this like literally as we speak. I had a meeting, let's see, less than 10 days ago on this topic. All right. But we're in the early stages of planning it. So it's hard for me to pin down and say, this is when it's going to happen. Here's how this is going to play out, though, more than likely. We are going to first enter into a data collection phase where people who do ZOE will be offered the opportunity, if they're interested, not required, if they're interested, to give us feedback on how they're feeling in terms of their digestive wellness. And when they do that, they're correlating that to their dietary choices. So that information, as we start to collect it, the more information that we collect, the more we will be able to apply our machine learning algorithms and predict. So it's hard for me to say how long that will take because it all depends on how many people are willing to participate and provide that feedback. But once we have the information that we need, when people provide that feedback, we will be able to use our machine learning algorithms to help to unpack and tease apart the complexities and layers to these questions. They are very complicated, not easy. It was a lot easier to chase blood sugar and blood fat than it is to chase food intolerances. But we're going to work on it because we have the technology to do it. All right. Have you noticed any changes since you incorporated the gut boosters recommended? Well, what can I say other than I am turning 41 in 2 weeks, and like I feel better than I did when I was 30. So what can I say? I feel really good. I don't know what more to say other than like I'm aging, but I feel like I'm reverse aging, to be honest with you. The foods that were your gut boosters, did you purposely eat that you were able to get those results? No, like I wasn't eating lentils when I took this test. So it just popped up, which is quite interesting. Okay. Cool. All right, good. Hey, right on time. 1 hour. Not bad. Any other questions from you guys real quick before we run? Cool. I hope this was helpful. I thank you guys for coming and hanging out. Thank you, Caroline. I appreciate you guys coming and hanging out with me on a Thursday at lunchtime. And this, by the way, is going to be, the recording will be available as usual in Kajabi. And I will see you guys. I hope you guys are enjoying Poop Week. It's one of my favorite weeks. And I will see you guys on Monday for our next live session. So, all right, guys, thanks so much. I'll see you.